The days are getting shorter, the nights are getting colder. The supermarket shelves are now laden with the plastic skeletons of animals that have absolutely no business having skeletons, like, seriously, butterflies don't have bones. And what topic is more appropriate for Halloween than black cat? That's why in today's video, we're going to be diving into the recent sighting of a black panther in Big Creek, Mississippi. This is the picture that I first came across when it was shared on Instagram by big cat expert Imogene Cancellari, who goes by biologist Imogene. And it's worth noting that there's some doubt about the authenticity of the image. But for now, we're just going to take it at face value and assume that this is a real picture of a real sighting and it was taken in Mississippi. The most likely explanation for most sightings of big cats is actually domestic cats. You'll notice that a lot of pictures of these sightings are blurry and have nothing in the background for scale, and the majority of these sightings are black panthers, with black being the only colour that big cats share with domestic cats. This picture, on the other hand, is very clearly a big black cat, so we can rule out somebody's pet. But that still doesn't tell us what it is. Black panther is just a term used to describe a colour variant called melanism, which we'll talk about in more detail later on. But essentially, it's a gene that creates a lot of dark pigmentation and makes the animal appear to be completely black. There are 5 wild cat species native to the United States. 3 of those are small cats, the ocelot, the Canada lynx, and the bobcat. Both Canada lynx and the bobcat can be melanistic, and bobcats are pretty common in Mississippi, but this sighting is definitely a big cat, which narrows it down to just 2 species, the jaguar and the mountain lion. The mountain lion, also known as a cougar, puma, and, just to be confusing, Florida panther, has a confirmed range across the western US and in the state of Florida. Mountain lion sightings are reported outside of this area every year, and some have even been confirmed. In 2011, a mountain lion was hit by a car in Connecticut. While there's been no known breeding population of mountain lions in Mississippi for over a century, they aren't completely gone. Dispersing males will occasionally pass through. It would make a lot of sense for this to be a mountain lion, but it doesn't look right for a mountain lion. And while it's not completely impossible that one might pop up one day, there has never been a confirmed sighting of a melanistic mountain lion. So that brings us to our second native big cat species, the jaguar. Jaguars can be melanistic, and at one point could be found throughout the southwestern United States. But to our knowledge, they've never lived in Mississippi. Over the last few years, sightings of jaguars in the United States have been increasing. Although at one point they almost disappeared entirely thanks to hunting and habitat loss, dispersing males have begun to cross the border and have since been recorded in New Mexico and Arizona. These jaguars are heavily monitored. The chances of a jaguar making it all the way to Mississippi undetected is practically zero. Not to mention that there has been a singular sighting of a melanistic jaguar in northern Mexico, where these males are crossing into the US, and that was in 2004. Most sightings of black jaguars come from Costa Rica and Panama, with a few in Brazil and 1 in Paraguay. But if we assume that the sighting is legitimate, that still leaves us with the mystery of a big black cat in Big Creek, Mississippi. And if it's not a mountain lion, or a bobcat, or a jaguar, then that really leaves us with only one possible answer. It's an escaped, non-native species. Both Imogene and bear biologist Wes Larson agree that this picture resembles one species in particular. The most likely explanation is that this is a picture of an escaped melanistic leopard. In 2021, there were just 295 leopards captive in federally regulated facilities, but there's no way to guess how many are unregulated under private ownership. Melanism in leopards is also pretty common. While the trait can be selectively bred for in captivity, about 10% of wild leopards are also melanistic, and there are 2 main reasons for this. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about what it is that causes melanism in the first place. Hair colour is controlled by multiple genes. In humans, it might be as many as 124. The gene that causes melanism in both leopards and jaguars increases the production of the black pigment melanin over the top of the existing pattern, meaning that in the right light, you can still see the spots underneath. In jaguars, this is caused by a mutation to the melanocortin-1 receptor gene, or MC1R, and as a dominant allele, only one copy of the gene needs to be passed down for a cub to be melanistic. In leopards, the mutation occurs in the agouti signaling protein gene, or ASIP, and it's recessive. This means that a normally coloured leopard can still carry the gene for melanism, but both parents need at least one copy to give birth to a melanistic cub. If the mutation is more common in one area, or if you have an isolated population where these genes come up so they're more likely to be inbreeding and sharing those recessive genes amongst the population, then you're more likely to see melanistic animals appear. But in order to pass on those genes, the melanistic cub still needs to survive into adulthood. Mutations pop up all the time in nature, and they can be either a good thing, a bad thing, or entirely neutral for the animal's survival. A bad mutation might prevent the embryo from being viable, or it might mean that the animal doesn't survive very long after birth. For example, an albino animal might struggle to camouflage itself in a dark rainforest. A neutral mutation is more likely to be passed down, as it doesn't affect survival at all. A good example of this is the stripy patterns you'll sometimes see on copperheads. A positive mutation is very likely to be passed down, as it actively helps the animal to survive, and this is what might be happening to melanistic leopards. Leopards have a wide range and can be found through Asia and Africa. Melanistic leopards, however, are most common in heavily forested regions of Asia. The habitats these leopards live in are dark and shaded, and a darker coat will help them to blend in. As a result, as many as 90% of leopards found on the Malay Peninsula are black. Meanwhile, in Africa, leopards are mostly found in open savanna, where a big black cat will struggle to sneak up on its prey or hide from a competitor. And in Mississippi, well, the state is heavily forested, so it's not impossible that a black leopard could find a way to disappear. But animals that escape from captivity are generally pretty habituated to humans. They lack the survival skills they'd need, and they generally prefer to stay close to home. I really doubt that there is a real black leopard on the loose in Mississippi right now. But if an escape did happen, between hunters, road traffic accidents, and the constant threat of starvation, it's unlikely that the animal would be able to survive for very long.